Hey, produce people, welcome back to the Produce Industry Show. I'm here live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We've got a lot going on. Heck, it's the middle of April. Where has the year gone already? So I want to give a little bit of a shout out to all of our sponsors. I say a little bit because we recognize them all throughout the year. We want to talk about Ag Tools, Flavor Wave Fresh, John Green Logistics, Awahi Produce, and our new fancy sponsor, Summer Citrus from South Africa. Now, we have a gentleman that was episode 23 that was on the line, and then he came back for episode 233. Heck, I wasn't even sure if I was going to meet him in person, but the stars have aligned, and now we've got a gentleman all the way from London in the studio here in Tampa. Good friend of mine that I've gotten to know over the last 2 years, met during COVID, everyone. And that's how it normally works. He's got 7 books that have changed my life as well, all the way to just thinking about how leadership and how I do business, a different mindset coming from across the globe. So today, let's go ahead and get Geoff Hudson-Searle on the Hey, Geoff, welcome to the show today.
Pat, it's amazing to be here in Tampa, Florida,
Right?
and in the studio.
Hey,
it's amazing.
I was excited.
Can you believe that?
I was excited.
Yeah.
How many times did I tell you since you've been here, I didn't think this was going to happen?
No, you said to me, like, you couldn't believe it when I said I was actually coming into town, and how we actually aligned and got each other's schedules together. Yeah, incredible, Pat. I mean, it's so good to see you and really good to connect with you at all levels. So yeah, very happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here.
Very happy to continue the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we left off the last conversation, which is pretty unique, everyone, because Geoff and I started talking at the International Pineapple Organization.
That's right.
On leadership.
Yeah. Leadership. That's right.
During COVID.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of, I would say, trust issues during COVID, letting people work from home.
Sure.
Kind of the whole, I would say.
Oh, don't forget the supply.
Don't
forget the supply chain trust issues.
There was a lot of supply chain issues in 2020, and no one wanted to admit it. Do you remember? Yeah. A lot of people wanted to keep it behind closed doors.
That's right. And then the other issues that we had with agriculture as well, if you remember, was all of the farmers just waste produce literally going away, and now we see ourselves here. I mean, when you look back, I mean, it's like, did that really happen?
Yeah, I mean, it did.
It really changed the world.
It changed the way we look at things.
Yeah.
Some of the first conversations that we were having were about change.
Yeah, they still look. To be fair, change is still big on the agenda. I mean, you know, I don't think we talked also, if you remember last time, about Darwinism.
Yes, we did.
We talked about it's not the strongest of species that survives, but it's the one that's more adaptable to change. And I don't think we're changing. What we are changing is the way change has affected our lives, but the speed in which it's changing our lives. And I think that's a big consideration right now.
I agree with you. And I think with the speed of things that are happening, heck, when I picked you up from the hotel, we were talking about just the fast-paced environment.
Yeah.
We talked about, how was our Easter holiday a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And what I tell you, what my son said, I said he had such an amazing Easter, and, you're like, why? Oh, he just had a good time, right? He enjoyed the family. He enjoyed being outside. He just had an enjoyable time. He told me, well, I wasn't bored. Check, right? For an 11-year-old, not being bored. Because I think with the way things are changing so fast, right? You got TikTok, you got Instagram, you got all these social platforms where they're only keeping you active for 10 to 15 seconds before you move on, right?
So, yeah, the statistics are really interesting. So if you look at the Gen Zs, if you look at our website, it's generally a 3-second retention rate. And actually, when you look at people like my age, we're looking at 2 minutes 27. So we're looking at people that have multiple things on the go at any one given time. And we are in a big challenging world right now where, is it about execution and penetration, or is it just about the fact you're touching different things at different times? The speed in which we do things is causing overexhaustion. It's causing people to burn out. We've got the quiet quitting issue, which you're very aware about, and we sort of touched on last time. So if you look at it, I think we live in incredibly interesting times right now. But I think things have got to be built on a better foundation. And what you said about the Easter holidays, and particularly about your son, we've got to also get back to some value systems. And actually, I hate to say this, but we've got to get back to trust.
Back to trust. So what's great about this is you brought your new book,
Yep.
The Trust Paradigm. Now, when we first connected, I was reading a different one of your books.
Purposeful, actually.
Purposeful discussions.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? And so I've had purposeful discussions. This is the trust paradigm, everyone. And what's cool about the trust paradigm is that when I first met Geoff, we talked about 2020 purposeful discussions. We also talked about trust. Well, then we had our another podcast on 10/10/2022 talking about the book, right? And then the book was released on November 3rd of 2022, right? And now we're sitting here and it's April 21st. And now we're talking about the book and I have it in hand, everyone. So I want you to let our listeners know what this is about, because when you think about trust, people think, yeah, you just got to trust, it's fine. Trust my boss, trust my colleague, trust my wife. But there is a paradigm within trust overall. And we've talked a little bit about this on the podcast already.
Yeah, we have. And then to be fair, I think that we all talk about technology and we all talk about industrial revolution, but actually we've got to talk about trust, because trust is the biggest issue in the world today. It's not technology. Okay, if you start looking about trust in government, if we start looking about trust in the public's opinion over things like the police force, believe it or not, things like that, it's diminished. If we start actually looking at business to business and how people behave, this is a cognitive thing, right? This is behavior. Trust is an act of behavior. If we look at leadership within business, and the survey that I did, which really made the book happen, Pat, was based on a survey that I publicly put out at IBEM towards people in business and how much were they trusted their line manager or their director, managing director or CEO. 87%, is a big number, and that's what we saw during the pandemic. 69% is what we saw prior to the pandemic, and now I think we're in the 70s. So trust is a big issue, but then it doesn't stop there, Pat. You talked about family life earlier, and we discussed it in the car coming to the studio. But actually, people at home and everyday relationships, it's too transactional. We've got to get back to the human relationship. And this is where societal is really going wrong.
And it's tough. I mean, we talk about tradition this morning, right? I'm not a gentleman of tradition, but I want my kids and I to have our own tradition, right? Because we want to make our own, right? But I think that, him being at his grandparents' house for Easter, being able to just be on property and not have video games or an iPad or anything in front of him, right? Gave him an option to go play basketball. I saw him outside hitting acorns with a baseball bat. Heck, I haven't done that since I was probably 12, right? You remember that? That's when you got creativity happening inside of your mind, right? Because then you're thinking, can I do this?
Yeah.
Is this possible? I'm going to try it. Now, it might not have worked. And you know what? I didn't go out the first time. He might have been hitting rocks before I went out there, right? That's all. He probably was. But he was looking at me like, hey, you want to come with us? I said, hey, let's figure this thing out, right? And then, being, the Easter egg hunt, being on the property, we were hiding it in trees and all over the place. So they really had to go out and scavenger hunt, right? Really look for things. And then you put the gold eggs that got money in it, right? Now it gets a little bit interesting. Got to start thinking creatively. Wait, can it be in a tree? Can it be in a bush, right? So I think that was his mindset. I mean, I'm thinking for him, but he just kept saying to me, I just had fun, right? I just had fun. Now, let's bring this into a work environment, Geoff. Well, first of all, just being in the studio, I have fun all day.
100%.
I mean, look at this, right? I mean, look at the studio, right? But if you take this back to actual like work, right? People want to enjoy where they're working. They want to enjoy the people that they work with, right? In the book, you talk about TI, trust intelligence.
100%.
That's amazing, because we all talk about emotional intelligence. We talk about how we work with others, how we have empathy, how we have sympathy, right? But trust intelligence isn't talked about a lot. We don't talk about emotionally how we trust somebody. we always talk about emotionally how someone's distrust us or broke our trust, right?
Yeah.
And how to move past that. Talk about that trust
I
intelligence.
will, because I think it's really important. I want to start with how the movement of trust is now moving on to the board of directors, right? So we're seeing now a trust agenda on boards, like we saw with CPOs, chief people officers, actually managing purpose. If you remember, back in its day, we talked about that. But when we start talking about, the trust or the intelligences, we do start with the emotional intelligence, right? We start looking at EQ, obviously, in terms of what it means. IQ in terms of people's actual competence and skill, which is also a building block of trust. Interesting enough, Duke University here in the US came out with a decency intelligence. We've also heard of spiritual intelligence, right? But trust intelligence encapsulates all of the intelligences within an umbrella. And really, if you start looking at emotion, the ability to communicate, the ability to listen effectively, effective listening moves into compassion, into empathy. Okay, it moves into understanding. It moves into the ability to be able to communicate effectively before you can get into purpose and obviously ultimately into trust. We need to start trusting one another in order for us to engage and interact and actually work together to achieve greatness. We all want to be a part of greatness. We all want to be able to actually touch one another's lives in the way that you've described. But it starts with, human trust, human relationships. We've got to start getting away from just the transaction. There's no depth. There's no purpose with any of these things. And so I think that, if you want to touch someone's life, we've got to start looking at the bigger and the broader picture and not on the silos and not at the place of a transaction, because the human relationship has depth, it has meaning, it has longevity. More importantly, it's sustainability.
And I'm going to bring my book up, Millennial Boom. I know you've read it, and it's crazy because we talk about the generational gap and that trust factor.
Sure.
If you look at the baby boomer generation, it was a do as you're told mentality, right? If you look at from when they were born, even the silent generation in the 30s, moving past World War II, in the Depression, right? And then having this baby boom.
Yeah.
Just so you know, baby boomers, we're not calling you babies or boomers. You were born during a boom, right? During when everybody got back from war, calling it the baby boom. Just so we're clear out there. I just want to let you know. So, but the baby boomers came up, right? Do what you're told, right?
Yep.
Mentality. And that's what they projected. So for so long, there's so many generations that have been doing what they're told. It's actually hurt organizations by someone telling them, shut up, do what you're told for 20 years, and then you'll get to my position. Well, then you're lacking innovation, creativity, ingenuity, right? When you're just sticking to that policy or that book, right? I always thought this was interesting when you talk about college. This is all leading to one thing, but you got that college educated kid. He gets out of college and he's like, hey, that's not the way the book tells you to do something. And you got the more experienced gentleman or woman saying, hey, calm down. I've been doing this for 20 years with the experience. But I think a lot of it is bringing and meshing it together and constantly learning, right? Because that 20-year veteran would not be able to do what he does without learning every day on how to do it without a book, right? And then because our baby boomers been telling us what to do for so long, we went to college. I'm speaking to myself now. I went to college, just did everything that was kind of in that ducks in a row, right? And then got to a point where the trust was broken. See, I'm wrapping this all the way around that we've done what we've been told to do for so long that now we're realizing that some of the trust factors weren't there to begin with, and we were just being told what to do. The TI, the trust intelligence, right? All of this wasn't there. And I think this is a great time to bring this out, especially 2 years after COVID, or 3 years technically, right? 3 years after COVID. And I said we still bring that up because it has changed the world, the way digital transformation has happened, the way you even wrote a book. You've written 2 through COVID, right? The way how it's marketed, right? There's a big trust factor in all aspects, right? I really think there is.
No, there is. And you touched on another word, wisdom, actually, wisdom intelligence. So we start looking at the Gen Zs. We start looking about their speed, their intelligence, their ability to bring things together. What they don't have is the veteran experience that you talked about earlier. And I think that trust the Gen Zs have got to start trusting the baby boomers. They've got to start trusting people of different generations in order for societal to actually move forward. Yes, there's a lot of learnings, and yes, we can learn a lot from the Gen Zs, but equally they have an awful lot to learn, because the multitasking to the execution and penetration is a completely it's a complete landscape of learning. And was it George R.R. Martin that said, the man that reads one book lives one life, the man that reads 1,000 books lives 1,000 lives. Plenty to be learned when you start talking about wisdom.
I agree with you. I like that statement too. I mean, the more books I say you read, not the smarter you get, but I would say the younger you get, because you're learning every day. You're putting more into your mind. I told that to a lady about 2 months ago. I said, the day you grow old is the day you stop learning.
Yeah.
And she said to me, she goes, oh, I'm old then. And I was like, wait, what? I go, oh, I'm old. I said, that's impossible. But she did. She made a point to say, like, I stopped reading books. I stopped learning. And I told her, I said, that's a bad way to look at life. And then I had a lady that was in my studio just, a few weeks ago at the prime age of 68.
Yeah.
And she's learning. She wants to learn how to edit podcasts, and do video. And she's at 68. And she goes, well, I'm not getting any younger. And it's like, I might as well keep learning. I might as well keep leading. I might as well keep engaging.
Yeah. 100%.
Right? Creating new relationships that weren't there. Heck, we spoke about, some of the baby boomers in our industry, how they're very, I would say, reserved now. They're playing golf courses, right? They're telling people what to do, but they're not working anymore.
No.
Right?
Well, quiet quitting was actually very interesting for the Gen Zs, right? Because it was their way of actually going down to a 30-hour week and getting paid for 40, and actually, right, having a second job, right? So the quiet quitting is nothing new. It's been going on for generations, right? But the fact is, they have manipulated and maneuvered themselves into a situation where they can benefit more.
Well, everyone, let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Geoff to talk about the trust paradigm.
Looking forward to it.
As we all know, traditional plastics do not rapidly degrade. If not properly recycled, they build up in landfills, pollute our environment, and ultimately disrupt our ecosystems. As a leader in the packaging industry, Severin is excited to introduce BioAble Solutions, the newest addition to our family of high-performance packaging. Enabled with bioassimilation technology, our BioAble Solutions products are 100% recyclable and uniquely formulated to fully degrade in both marine and terrestrial environments, leaving behind no microplastic waste. BioAble Solutions by Severin is a true sustainable option for the everyday consumer that directly addresses plastic and food packaging sustainability. High-performance packaging in a responsible format.
I'm Carl Fiadini with Walk and Talk, The Restaurant Life. If you follow the show, thank you. We really appreciate the support. If you don't follow the show and you're a foodie or a chef or you're into the restaurant world, this is your home. Check us out. We sincerely appreciate it. All about the food. We're filming chefs, their food creations in the best establishments near you. All right, so let me tell you where you can find us. We're on YouTube, we're on Newsbreak, we're all over the internet. We're also streaming on your TV with Roku, Android TV. You can find us on the Amazon app, and very soon, Apple TV. Come on!
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. It's always great to see some of those sponsors and see what's happening with our produce in the real world. So everyone, we're talking with Geoff Hudson-Searle today. Geoff, welcome back.
Pat, it's great to be back. Thank you.
I got to say it again. How do you like being here? I mean, listen, 3 years ago when we first did the original podcast, I was literally in my closet, like, because that was the only way I could get the sound right, quiet. I had kids in one room doing online learning. My wife was teaching, and I was like, I got to figure out a way to, record and get content out,
and now we're back on planes. I mean, this is my second trip to the US in 3 weeks, I think.
No way.
Yeah, I was in New York, and then I went down to Vero Beach for St. Patrick's weekend, then back to New York, and now back to Tampa, and yeah, loving it. Just I love, Florida's a great state. So.
It's a great place. And again, the weather. Like we were talking about the weather, like I told you, dress casual, but we're both in long pants.
Yeah, look,
it was
Tommy,
69 degrees.
Look, my Tommy Bahama shirt just for you.
For me. Hey, I love that Tampa, I bring out the Floridian in people, and I'm not even from here.
It's
but
Tampa.
I can bring it out.
It's Tampa, right?
And we're actually gonna go to a restaurant later.
Excited, yeah.
Brought to you by Walk and Talk. Everybody, as always, behind the camera, behind the scenes, Walk and Talk Media. Helping with all of the production pre and post, and a lot of the restaurants that you see on the show. Come join the restaurant life with Walk and Talk Media. Big shout out to Carl behind the camera, big guy. I see you. Yeah, there he is. I mean, what I'm trying to bring to the produce industry is a level of understanding and education and outlet, right, for us all to thrive and grow together. So it's amazing to have you here because, again, as I've told many people, the books that you've written, like I said, I talk so much about purposeful discussions because I thought it made so much sense to where you were like, Pat, how many times do you get into discussions and you walk away and you're like, I just wasted 9.5 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
Right. And we started to come to how to have purposeful discussions, why have purposeful discussions. Right. Yeah. And then again, I keep bringing that up because it was a big phase for me to really understand. And I'll tell you what it did for me. It made me understand when someone said to me during COVID, hey, I'd like to set up a 15-minute intro call. I started asking them certain questions.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What is the topic going to pertain to? Where do you want to go with it? And I actually had like small interview questions, Geoff, because I thought to myself, if I'm going to get on the phone with someone.
Yeah, but you can't do that when they're saying to you, I got a hard stop on the 15 or I got a hard stop on the 45.
That's also true too, right? Or you get
no depth.
So many people reach out to you and LinkedIn, right?
Right.
Hey, can I get this call? And you're like, I got to have purposeful discussions here. I got to be made to say, hey, listen, we're going to put a time period on this, but we got to be talking purposefully and ready moving forward. And I got to be able to trust what you're saying.
Yeah, 100%. Right. So look,
I'm just saying.
I love what you picked up on there. And actually, you can't do a 15-minute call or a 45-minute call if you have no depth to discussion. You got questions you want to ask, but the relationship is not going to be connected unless you can get to that granular detail of a level of credibility, which morphs into trust. Actually, I want to talk to you, Pat, about something bigger. And actually, to all the viewers today, I want to talk about something bigger, which the book talks about: business reinvention, trust reinvention. That's what we've got to get back to. Now, when we start looking at, I don't know if you know, Pat, but I think you do. I'm a senior judge at the Lloyds Bank National Business Excellence Awards. And one of the companies there I'm actually seeing while I'm here, actually in Tampa, Tom's just opened an office for Ivona, and they have a very different attitude. It's a growth mindset. It has flex to enable staff to work the hours that they want to work. There is a social element where they help charities. Now, I'm not saying that we all want to work on that kind of flex routines, but what I do want to say is that business reinvention is about mindset. It's about a growth mindset. Covers the areas of business model innovation. It covers things like culture within an organization. It covers trust. But most importantly, people are human-centered, designed into that systematic area of operating and working. Now, no big surprise when McKinsey, PwC, Deloitte's do CEO leadership reports on an annual basis that show that 84% of CEOs globally and internationally, whether it's Fortune 100 companies or middle-sized SME businesses, cannot make change. Well, They can't make change because actually they don't have the right mindset. They don't have the right competency and level of skills, but more importantly, they don't have design level thinking. And for businesses, for the economy, for the world to actually change globally and internationally, we have got to get back to reinvention. Not the CEO's only got 18 months left on his contract and wants his bonus, because that is going to increase the risk of that organization. It's about actually executing, okay, a design-led thinking paradigm that makes a difference from a performance, from a people point of view, from a culture point of view, but more importantly, a trusted formula for growth and change.
Well, let's talk about people for a second.
Yeah.
You know, because one thing that I've been seeing, right, you've been seeing the ghost quitting, right? You've been seeing people getting hired and not showing up too. Listen, I know who some of you are. I'm telling you right now. We've seen this, right? And it's, I've had a friend, and and they know who they are. They literally got hired by an organization, but then the other organization gave him a better deal. He never even called the other organization to say that he wasn't leaving, because that, ready, at that point, it was out of sight, out of mind. He was making more money. He was doing something else with that other position, and that didn't affect him with that company.
That's right.
That's crazy. I think that everything text. So I'm going to jump in real quick because I want you to talk about this. Chapter 18, why outstanding people deserve the right company culture. I'm going to read this quote because I think it's a good quote by Tony Robbins, right?
Yeah.
Anytime you sincerely want to make a change, the first thing you must do is raise your standards. Stay committed to your decisions, but stay flexible in your approach.
Yeah. So trust is all about micro actions turning into credibility. Have you ever bought your wife flowers? You haven't said to her, honey, I'm going to buy some flowers, because she's going to say, where are my flowers? Right? Come on, let's get real with this, right? So when you start actually bringing that back, what the pandemic actually did was accelerated behavior by about 8 years. Nobody was ready for it. Nobody had a playbook for this. No one had a set of rules or policies for this. What also came with that is, without even you knowing, you're no longer my friend, because I'm going to ghost you. You're blocked. You're not able to speak to me anymore.
That happened to me recently. And I'm jumping in because I felt it, where I was somewhere and someone that, left another company, I guess, stopped liking me all of a sudden. And, I told this gentleman, I said, well, maybe this is a learning moment for me. And they said, how? I said, because I need to know who I can trust.
Right. But this behavior doesn't breed trust.
No.
It doesn't provide foundation. You can't suddenly wake up one day and say, honey, I'm no longer with you, so I'm going to block you. You're blocked.
Hey, hey, honey, stay in your side of the bed, but you're blocked.
But speak to my lawyer about how the kids are going to work this out, right? Right? I'm serious, right? And I said to you earlier,
that's so true.
Human relationships, okay, wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, at home is one area of trust.
True.
Business and leadership, it's that culture is about vision, mission, and values. Values that actually are not just words, okay, on boards around the office. A living, breathing set of values, and the culture that brings is actually, as a metaphor, can be the whole belief system and operating system around how your business and people behave.
It's 100% true. And what I like about this, I keep reading from the book here, because I think this sits with me in a little ways, because how people are leaving their jobs now and the ghosting. And I mean, look, listen to some of these statistics here. Fewer than 3 out of 10 employers have an engagement strategy in place with their people. Only 30% of employees feel encouraged to grow within their own company. And then here's another one, number 3. 3/4 of employees who move on are actually leaving their boss, not the company.
100%. But do you know why they're leaving the boss?
Tell me.
It's one of the biggest problems that we've seen through the pandemic, and out of the pandemic was CEOs that don't have the competence or the skills to lead, number one. Number two, they turn to toxic and narcissism within their people, which disengages their people and it doesn't elevate their people. People are all about knowledge share. It's about working together in unity. It's about engaging people around where people want to go. It's about psychological safety in the business environment. Leadership has got to change. Now, it's either got to change with a new influx of skills and competencies to help drive that initiative, or internally, it's got to completely change. And I'm afraid that's why I talked to you earlier about business reinvention. You know, business reinvention, we have a leadership model canvas that we put together, which can say company A or B, based on this level of point data input, we can say exactly what kind of leaders should be a part of that organization. But culturally, you need to engage your people leadership, and you've got to, more importantly, it's not about command and control anymore. That was a very old strategy. It cannot be used today. The model that you've got to use has got to be a reinvention model, because the world is changing. So's your company.
And that's what people don't understand.
They don't
We
get
talked
it.
about it earlier,
Yeah.
you know, when, on the drive here,
Yeah.
is that there's so many organizations that they won't admit that. You know, one of the guys that I'm partnered with and that I work with, we talk about this all the time, that
Yeah.
I stay out of your lane, you stay out of my lane. It's not because we're fighting over the lanes. He told me, hey, you do very good there, and I don't want to do that.
Right.
I do very well here, and I'm assuming you don't want to do that because you're not touching. And we both looked at each other and really said to each other, this relationship works out not because we know to stay in our own lanes, is that we have now admitted to each other that we do not want to handle that side of the business, nor is it our passion. Can we do it? Yes. Can we run financials, Geoff? Yes, we can. But do I want to be the CFO of an organization? Absolutely not. I want to be the CEO, and how I view the financials is probably a little bit different than how a CFO would view the financials versus how your bookkeeper would view the financials, right?
Right.
And I think that's, you know, a big play.
Right. But you are
today.
You're discussing it.
Right.
And what we've just talked about is that silent quitting.
Yes.
Or quiet quitting, where you're not even getting to the point of even having the discussion.
The discussion.
And by the way, you can't email them because they've just blocked you.
No, they blocked.
To understand, you know. But then you see,
sounds a little woke to me. Everyone, I'm just throwing it out there.
But you'll see them in Tahiti on Facebook.
No, exactly. Right. Well, and that's what we're going to talk about next is, you know, measuring trust. Sure. You know, that's a big one too, because it's very hard. There's no pendulum swinging saying, oh, if you do this, you know, someone's going to trust you more, and if you do this, they're not.
No, the trust metrics, I think,
it's very different in work, life.
Definitely.
I mean, business, all the way around, your personal life.
Sure.
It's there. What I told you this to get on the way here. Baby boomers.
Sure.
They have a different way of looking at trust, because they were the do what you were told mentality. And I told you this on the way here. It's like my family will, and some baby boomers, they'll tell each people different stories because they don't want that person to know what they're doing. And they'll literally say, well, I told them I'm going to New York. Where are you going? Virginia. Well, I just don't want them to know I'm in New York, but I at least want them to know that I'm in the East Coast. And you're like, that makes no sense to me. Right? Just like you're, you know, I was telling you about, oh, what are you doing for Easter? Oh, I'm going to my mom's house, and you're really going somewhere else. That little white lie
turns into a big one.
Turns into something else. And it's happening more and more in work.
So then you're taking away integrity.
You are.
You're taking away honesty. There's no authentic openness.
Right.
Right. And I'm afraid trust is built up of all of these characteristics. And you start looking at what uniquenesses.
What did I say?
Right.
I don't want to be around someone that's going to tell me, oh, I'm doing this. And then, like you said, then you see him in Tahiti on a camel, or all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. They just told me they needed a mental fitness
I
break.
would love to see in Tahiti.
You know what I meant. You know what I meant. He's looking at me like I'm an idiot. I am. I get it. But you know what I mean? It's like you're looking at it going, wait a minute. This person just didn't show up for work for 2 weeks. Now they're saying they need a mental health break, which again, if you need it, please do it. We appreciate all the mental fitness. But this ghosting where all of a sudden they're gone and then all of a sudden they're in another place, like I said, Tahiti or Fiji or riding a camel in Egypt. I got it right, I remember. But you know what I mean? It's like now you're like, wait a minute, this person's living their best life, but they can't even show up to work on
so
time.
I read a really interesting report this morning that said that that Americans on a daily basis spend on average 87 minutes in a car, right? Driving, whatever. Intimacy results in about 30 minutes a day if you're lucky, and that's social interaction. So are we as a society not even bothering to speak to one another anymore? I mean, are you saying I don't want to communicate with you anymore? I'm not answerable to you, so I don't have to speak to you?
I think some are.
Right? Are we saying that as a society that we can do things? We're not all psychics, by the way. Yeah. Are we saying that we know the right answer because we can make decisions on behalf of you? We're prepared to judge without actually finding out the facts and the answers. Is that what we're saying? Because I mean, that's what I'm saying. The reason why I've written the book with Mark Herbert, The Trust Paradigm, was because we've got to have a major shift over being open, being authentic, being honest, having the integrity, okay, to trust one another again. By the way, if you've actually lost that trust, as you described earlier, in certain instances, you can regain that trust. I use the metaphor in the book about trust currency, right? Use it like a bank account. For everything you do positively in a good way with the right mindset, you get a credit. Every time you sell a white lie saying you're going to Tahiti on a camel, right? then you have a debit. You have a debit, right?
That was on me.
Yeah. Then you have a debit.
I like that. I do like that though, because I think that at some points there are white lies that need to happen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be real, because again, even if someone straight up asked you, "Hey Jeff, you're gonna be in Tampa next week," and you don't want that person to know, you might say, "I might be around, I might not be."
Yeah.
I mean, that's not telling the truth.
Of course it's not.
But on another instance, you're like, yeah, I don't want this gentleman to know because I know he absorbs so much of my time. I mean, trust me, there's times that I know people in LA, they're like, as soon as you land in LA, call me. And I'm like, if I call you in LA and I know who you are too, and you know who you know that I'm talking about you, I will spend 7 hours with you, not by my choice. Like, you see what I'm saying? It's
right. But mental health has just gone up and up and up. You talked about burnout. I'd like to take that to mental health. I've just written a chapter. I've just written a chapter actually for a new book for Dina on to help people overcome some of these challenges of mental health adversity. Right? This is a huge subject. Now, is it because you can't communicate? Is it because you're working with people that aren't open and authentic and honest? Is it the fact that you're in isolation with all of those issues put together? Is it because you have nobody to actually interact with? Now, look, the pandemic showed us new ways of behaving, new ways of working, but we're here today probably with the highest level of mental health that as a world society than we've ever had. So what are we prepared to do about it? Well, I say we get back to trust. Trust me, trust you, trust everyone. We've got to get back to trust in order to release some of these things. And by the way, we've also got to remove toxic and narcissistic people from leadership positions that don't have the skills to engage their employees, okay, to actually take people on the right trajectories, on the right journeys, to actually fulfill what is the company effectively mission, vision, right?
And growth, right?
And growth.
So one thing, a huge shout out to Quentin Rowe at Noble Citrus. You know, he realized after so many years, he goes, if I'm going to take this company beyond me, I need to hire a new president and CEO.
Yeah.
And he goes, that was hard for me because he was always the president.
No, I understand.
He was the guy, right? But he goes, for me to get to the next level, right? From 50 million to 100 million, 100 million to 500 million. He literally said, I've told myself now that I know I can't do that.
Right, but he knew his capabilities and he knew the boundaries.
Now, guess what? They're scaling. They got a new president. They're hitting leaps they never thought they probably would before. And now he's sitting in a new position. Now, at first, that was hard for him, right?
Yeah,
but he admitted he knew.
You're
he
touching
knew.
on the founder syndrome.
Yeah,
Right.
true.
And
Very
a lot
true.
of founders want the title. I did write, and I was on TV with regards to the emotional wake of transformation.
Right.
You may like the title,
Okay.
but do you have the skills to execute?
Exactly.
Right.
So it's like, don't think of in life, right? Everyone, like, we want so so hard to get to the CEO or president position, and then all of a sudden, remember, there's a time where that's going to switch, and then you are going to go back to a different position because someone is going to have better competency.
The other way,
than
the
you.
other side of this is, do we have to really, as board of, I'm on the executive board of 3 main technology companies. Do we have to create a trust policy around governance and regulation, and risk management, and on our audit committees? Do we have to create a trust agenda to force our people to trust one another? Is that where we've got to go to? Or can we, as sensible adult human beings, actually behave in the right way, which embraces trust with one another, and see how society can foster and can grow and can develop? Because I'm a great believer, with the right mindset, with a growth mindset, you can achieve great things. What was it Audrey Hepburn said? Impossible means I'm possible.
I'm possible.
I love that, right?
Yeah.
But it's a growth mindset. Now, if you're in a negative mindset with narcissism, with toxicity within business, within the fact you don't speak to one another, that you block each other off, all you're going to create is a bigger negative scenario for you.
It's so true.
And by the way, the people that you touch.
Yep.
Where the growth mindset, you're touching positivity as a society, and from that, great things can actually grow. So look, I'm a great believer that as board director, we shouldn't have to enforce this and actually have this as a set of metrics within our senior managers, within our C-suite, and we should be able to behave in the right way. But I'm afraid to say, the pandemic, some great things came out of it, but also some bad behaviors.
Bad behaviors, I would say.
Yeah, bad behaviors.
I agree.
Also came out of it.
I agree. And as we start to wrap this up, I got one more story, and then I'm going to ask you to give our listeners some thought leadership as we move forward. But think about it. I go to trade shows a lot, and I report on a lot of trade shows. Yeah. And I have guests that'll come on and talk to me about, how their experience was. And sometimes, as being the podcast, we're not set up like some of these other media companies are, because we're a podcast, right? We're covering certain aspects of it. And it was interesting because I had a gentleman reach out to me and say, hey, you missed this part of our show. I heard in your podcast, many times that you didn't see that. I saw it as an opportunity for growth, right? Yeah. And I said to the gentleman that really was this: hey, I didn't know that. 4 to 5 other people didn't understand that. This is something maybe we should really elevate for the next year. And then they came back and said, you're right. You just weren't in touch with the whole program because we got you in last minute for a media, right? But I saw this as, I reported on what I saw, right? And it was a great event, right? But there was a little things missing that attendees were asking for. Well, now we realized we just didn't see it in the schedule, right? So we look at that as an opportunity for growth, because I want to go back to the show and indulge myself, engage, learn, and lead, and then tell them the truth on that, right? Yeah. So, I love this about, the last chapter, Geoff's thoughts, right? Which is, you can't be superhuman. Burnout's happening so much because people are trying to be all things to all people, right? Yeah. There's so many ghosting going on, right? When all of a sudden you figure out you can't be that anymore. Yeah. So as we look to close this session out today, and everyone, we're heading out to go have lunch on the water. Okay. What would you give our listeners?
Did you say shrimp?
Yeah, I did. Did you hear that? Carl, you heard that, right, buddy?
Sure.
Okay.
Shrimp at the JW, right?
But I definitely want, I look at you as a mentor.
Thank you.
It's just great to have you here. And as I look at the trust paradigm, purposeful discussions, what would you say to our listeners, that are listening today?
Okay, I think we've touched on quite a few subjects here today, but what I'd like to say is that when it comes to leadership, and to all you leaders listening to this, remember a couple of things. Number one, leadership is a privilege and an honor to support and lead people. Number one. Number two, remember, I said earlier, there's no command and control here, because you cannot utilize micromanagement in a leadership structure or position, because that's a high risk short term. You can never lead medium term long term with that. Number 3, which is the most important, remember, leadership should be with the many and not the few. So taking those considerations of 1, 2, and 3, utilize business reinvention, design-led thinking, systematic processes across operational development. These are the things that are going to lead your business to a heightened level of success, because you've engaged people into human-centered design and psychological safety. And you're all on the same trajectory, you're all on the same journey. And ultimately, it's the trust paradigm that will get you there.
Geoff said it like a true subject matter expert, my friend.
Thank you,
Thank
Pat.
you for coming in today. Thanks for joining us here in Tampa, Florida.
It's amazing. I'm so happy to be here with you face to face and in the studio. This is the energy. So far today, the energy's been phenomenal. It's great.
It's gonna get better.
It's gonna
Even though
get
we're
better.
looking at cameras, we're not on camera, everyone. So Geoff, I appreciate you coming, man.
Pleasure as always.
All right, everyone. Well, that concludes our show today. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for all the comments. Geoff will be on for a little bit after to start answering some of those comments and questions. Again, everyone, this is why we're here. We're here to bring you consumable education on the go. So we'll see you in the fields and on the horizon.